Hi, everybody. Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 194, recorded on March 21st, 2012. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
We have an interesting week of hardware news and information to talk about. We don't have a whole lot of reviews that went up this week. Ironically, everybody was working on some interesting things that aren't quite ready to go live yet. If you listen to the show and all the leaks and stuff like that we're going to talk about, you probably get a pretty good idea of what I have been working on. This podcast records on Wednesday night, so I guess there's no real use in promoting our event tomorrow, because if you're listening to this podcast and you download it, that event is already over. But tomorrow at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, Thursday the 22nd, we are hosting a PC Perspective live review, which is essentially exactly what it says. We publish a review for a new product. In this case, it may or may not be an NVIDIA discrete GPU product. And, we give people some time to read our review. Then we have a chat room and we let people submit questions through Twitter. We kind of talk about the product. We basically spend time specifically on this review and this product. And I'm really excited about it. We've actually got a representative from NVIDIA, the maybe infamous Tom Peterson is here, and he's going to, do some demos and answer some questions from audience as well. So it should be an interesting event. So again, just go to pcper.com/live, Thursday, the 22nd of March, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. Unless, of course, you download this after the fact, and go to pcper.com.live and see if we have a recording of it or something that you can watch. So first thing we want to talk about is an update to the NCAA PC Perspective bracket competition. So it's going pretty well for a couple of people. I would say that the best possible score options have decreased dramatically. There were a lot of interesting upsets in the world of college basketball over the last week. Currently in the lead is Owen Hen with a score of 48 and has guessed 35 games correctly so far. So how many games have we had so far? 30. I don't know. I can't do that math. 32 plus 64. So we've had a lot. A lot of people have been out there. So there are lots of people in the running. I personally, even though I can't win, I'm 40th. 40th here. Josh, did you enter as well?
No.
No? Anybody?
No,
Alan?
I'd have probably bet all Mountain West teams going into the finals, and
how'd that work out for you?
That didn't do very good.
Yeah.
That's why I never do brackets. I lose. Have you seen my office behind me? Obviously, I can't do brackets at all.
Organization, that type of thing. So yeah. We'll keep you up to date on who's gonna win the amazing super duper prizes and what those prizes are actually going to be sometime down the road. But just let you know, Owen is in the lead, and you guys better root for your teams to catch up to him. And we'll go from there. So the two articles that we're going to just briefly mention are reviews that we wrote. That they're kind of different than what you'd normally see. First of all, our very own Steve Griever was at South by Southwest over last week. He wrote one article already, and we posted another one this week looking at this specifically the trade show event from South by Southwest. Now, I've never been to South by Southwest. It doesn't seem like the kind of place I would like to be, because I'm not a fan of hipsters just in general. And if there are a lot of if that picture of the girl right there gives you any indication of what to expect from the event, I'm out, I guess.
Note the ring.
Note the what?
Note the ring. Somebody's married her.
That's on her right hand, though.
Oh.
That's not right.
Probably reversed.
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah. Except, of course, follow me at Proxybot was probably reversed then as well.
That's true.
Good point.
Yes. Clever. Way to keep
magnify and enhance.
Yeah. So there you look at some stuff from OtterBox, Audio Technica, DOS Keyboard, which I think is the coolest name of a company in the tech sector. And of course, Booth Babes and miscellaneous gadgets. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, check out our South by Southwest article. And then also Lee, who is typically our power supply and one of our cases and cooling reviewers, got an interesting email a couple of months ago. I was like, hey, we'd like to send you some of these Cerwin-Vega XD3 desktop speakers. Would you like to review them? He's like, okay, sure, why not? And we posted up a review of those, and they actually did pretty well. I'm trying to think, do you remember what the price speakers were, I must say, like $100, $99.99, something to that effect. So relatively modestly priced. He seemed pretty impressed with them. They didn't get any magical awards. He does say one of the weaknesses is, quote, anemic bass at higher volume levels. And I don't think anemic is ever necessarily a positive thing when you're talking about speaker quality. And the on-off switch is located on the back of the speaker. They're interesting speakers, $99. We don't really do a lot of external speaker reviews here, but check them out. Worth a look. And that actually rounds out our reviews for this week, which is unfortunate. It's interesting, not unfortunate necessarily, but we'll have way more stuff to talk about next week, specifically on reviews. But let's jump into news here. Jeremy, apparently there's been some leaks this week. Let's start with the Ivy Bridge information, right? So apparently we have a little bit more information on Ivy Bridge launch dates and specific products and SKUs and stuff.
Oh, we do indeed. So we now know that Intel is going to be leading with their i7s. So about the end of April, we're going to see 11 models, including a fairly nice mix of Core i7s and a single Core i5. A little bit later on, sort of early June, you're going to see the i5 line completely fleshed out. But if you're waiting for the i3s, you're actually looking more towards August. So they're definitely taking their time and putting out the less powerful chips. Although considering some of the pricing that we've been seeing, that does make some sense, because even the highest end i7 3770K, the launch price is pegged at $332, which for an Intel processor is quite reasonable. The i5s, we also know the prices of. They're running about $200, a little bit above, a little bit less, depending on whether you're willing to go down for a 2-core as opposed to a 4-core. But, you know, the prices are pretty nice. It makes sense that they would wait until we get until the end of summer to release the i3s, because their mobile platform right now, it's selling pretty well. You're going to have to be careful because the brand new processor graphics they're waiting on, the HD 4000, is very limited in the number of processors that you can get it in. In fact, the vast majority are going to see the HD 2500. There's also a lot more nomenclature to keep count of. You've got the K series, which, as we all know, are unlockable. And you've also got to deal with the S series and the T series, with the S series sitting with a slightly lower TDP generally, but not necessarily, and the T, which I am desperately trying to find on the page because I cannot for the life of me remember what the T was about. Josh, do you remember?
No.
Yeah, so even we are having difficulty dealing with the fact that there are 3 different letters which come after processor, a K, an S, a T, or you could just get the vanilla version, which doesn't even have a letter after it. So
I like more letters, personally.
Hey, so you use gigabyte boards then? But exactly. Sorry, the T's are the very low power. You sometimes are looking at a lower L3 cache, but you're looking at 35 watts or 45 watts versus the S's, which are sitting at 65 watts or so, depending on the chip, and the K's and the vanilla version, which are upwards of 77 watts. On the other hand, talking about high-powered Intel chips, which are only producing 77 watts TDP, says that, hey, this is pretty impressive.
Yeah,
and
Josh, what do you...
all the way to... Sorry?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask Josh what he makes of having a 77-watt TDP top-end part coming from Ivy Bridge. Do you think of that as a positive or as a negative in terms of, well, there's more thermal headroom here that they could get higher clock speeds that they're choosing to not do? What do you kind of make of that?
It's well, it's a positive for Intel. It may not exactly be positive for us because there is obviously so much extra headroom there that we're kind of getting gypped on potential performance. Maybe not gypped, but it certainly seems that Intel doesn't feel like they really need to improve the clock speeds and really just smother the competition as much as they potentially could. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, they're keeping, I guess, prices higher, and they keep their yields and their bins really, really strong. But we still don't know entirely how the 22 nanometer FinFET architecture works when we start looking at higher TDP parts. I mean, do they have some kind of issues with higher TDPs with that new process? Is there some kind of strange little voltage, versus current issue that they've got? So, until we can actually get them into our hands, see how high they go, and see what kind of power they pull at those, overclock speeds and how stable they are. We just kind of take that as at face value and say, well, that's nice. It seems we got some headroom. It's not going to be as hot a running part, and I don't know. You probably know more than me.
I actually don't. We don't have a whole lot of information on Ivy Bridge, that kind of stuff. My kind of theory on this would be that they could push a 95 watt part out, but maybe they're having some leakage issues above, the 3.4, the 3.5 gigahertz base clock speed, and so they can only get 100 or 200 megahertz more for that 20 watts, and they just decided that the trade-off's not worth it. They'll be able to market this as a lower power, more efficient part as opposed to necessarily being faster. But we're getting pretty close based on, look, it said that they were going to launch on March 23rd, and then the actual release date will be on April 29th. March 23rd is, that's Friday, right? So I'll be completely honest with you guys here again. I don't think that's the case because I don't have, that's not a date that I've ever been told from Intel to be under an NDA with or anything. So it's possible maybe we'll see notebooks released on the 23rd that use Ivy Bridge, or more notebooks, I guess. But I don't really think that's don't expect to buy anything until like the late April timeframe, as that other date seems to indicate. So, any other thoughts on the Ivy Bridge stuff before I move on to other news and more leaks as well?
Boy, AMD's screwed.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah. Well, what about Trinity?
Oh.
They've got Trinity, right? That's
we hope
possible win, right?
And there's been some leaks of actual performance on that one, and the CPU portion. They compared it against a what is it? The A8. Them and their freaking numbers. 3850.
3800.
3850 is their high end part.
Yeah, today.
It was that's clocked at 2.9 gigahertz. Trinity is a dual module 4-core part clocked at apparently 3.8 gigahertz, and it shows a 12% increase in overall performance. So I don't know if the performance gains with Trinity that we've been hoping for may necessarily show up. Sure, they probably are going to be better than the current Bulldozer, but I don't think... This
is the pile driver core, right?
Correct. I don't think we're going to see any miracles with Trinity and Pile Driver, which is a bummer, but at least the graphics performance is significantly higher than the previous generation with the VLI W4 architecture with that Trinity. So, they're still going to hang their hat on graphics. And,
little slip there. Yeah.
Yeah, hang their head. Damn. They're gonna, they're also gonna have some decent TDPs as well. So hopefully it'll work out for them because they need money.
They do. Yeah, they do. Another interesting company that doesn't really need money, but this is kind of an interesting news story. Google's rumored to be releasing a $199 Nexus tablet. Now, Nexus is the brand that Google gives to kind of their homegrown tablets, phones that you would basically consider reference designs to a certain point. So, you got the Nexus S, you got the original Nexus and those types of phones. Those are ones that are made by other companies, but Google kind of latches onto them as the reference platform is the one that gets the newest operating system, the earliest, and that type of thing. And this is something I kind of theorized a little while ago, that the iPad is so successful, and the most popular current Android tablets, probably the Asus Transformer, the Transformer Prime, those types of that family of product. But it really seems that the there's an inherent benefit in this type of device where the hardware and software are so closely integrated and so critical to each other that controlling the entire ecosystem may be the best option. I'm not talking about applications that you could install and that type of thing, but installing, building the device to the OS, building the OS to the device, those types of things. And it looks like Google may be kind of thinking about that as well. Maybe they decided that the current Android-based tablets out there aren't up to their expectations, that they wanted more out of what the current Android tablet markets are doing. I know they definitely wanted more market share. They wanted more of excitement about Android tablets than than there are right now compared to the iPad. So this could be interesting. They're talking about a 7-inch form factor, TI OMAP 4 processor versus using NVIDIA's Tegra 3 or something like that. Obviously, this is all kind of rumor and speculation at this point. Specifically Android, and would also run Android 4.1. The Verge stated the Nexus tablet will retail for $199 US, so there may be other varied SKUs that come at lower, higher prices depending on the amount of RAM and storage that you want. I think the Kindle Fire is a $199 device, but it's a limited operating system environment, right? I have a Kindle Fire. You can install all the applications that you would normally be able to install on an Android device, and it's kind of limiting in that fact. And now it is strictly an e-reader for me, as opposed to what I was hoping it would be, which would be an e-reader and a tablet. So I guess I should just go back and use the original Kindle. But that's it. I mean, so that's the news here, is that there might possibly be a Nexus tablet coming out. I think that would be an interesting addition to the market.
How's Arcos doing? I mean, I see that they release a bunch of pretty low price tablets. Are they any good? Are they decent? Are there issues with them? I know that for their G9 series and up, they already have ICS installs for them that you can install.
I don't know. To be completely honest with you, I've never had a lot of hands-on times with the Arcos ones. The Arcos ones that I have used that were well in the past, a year 18 months 2 years ago, were junky, right? And they felt like they were junk, and they kind of act like it. The G9 series, the 880 G9 and the 101 G9, which is an 8-inch and a 10-inch screen, respectively, are interesting devices. And you're saying they got ICS on them already. That would be interesting, worth trying out. And they are inexpensive. So I don't know. I think maybe that they just need to be out there marketing and branding themselves a little better. If you go to Best Buy, you don't necessarily see an Arcos sitting next to the Samsung and the Kindle and that kind of stuff. So maybe they will. Alan, you want to talk to us about Seagate's capability, their announcement that they achieved 1 terabit per square inch of storage density. Is this in some kind of newfangled laser technology? Something cool like that?
Sort of. It's not the same kind of laser thing we talked about a few weeks back, though. This is the older, I say quote air quotes older, even though it's not on any consumer drives yet, heat-assisted magnetic recording. So it's not using lasers to flip bits specifically. It's using lasers to heat up the area that you're about to write to. And this is mainly because they're just using a different technology, a different material to actually store the bits. So it's an iron-based material. It's a little bit harder to actually, write magnetically to that stuff at normal temperatures. So to be able to pull it off, the leading edge of the write head just has a laser pointed at that specific track that it's writing to. So it just heats it up just a little bit. It's enough to help it write the bits to it. And then it just, works from there. It's really just sort of massaging the metal a little bit before it goes writing to it.
Because I'm all for massaging the metal.
It doesn't need to use the laser for any kind of reads or anything, though. Once the bits are, once the domains are magnetized, they stay there, just like normal. But yeah, it's just yet another milestone. And actually 1 terabit per square inch works out to roughly 1 nanometer. So if you want to compare that to flash memory storage, where you're talking about, 20 nanometer, 19 nanometer, whatever, wherever the race happens to be right now, hard drives obviously have much better storage density, and it doesn't really look like it's, really hit a brick wall. It's just a matter of, this is more advanced technology. It's obviously going to cost more. You're not going to see this in hard drives even probably for the next year. I mean, a hard drive head is a pretty complicated thing to manufacture as it is for consumer drives. They're not going to.
Hey, do you think they're going to have a really snappy song for this one?
Oh,
you remember
mean
when
like the
perpendicular? Get perpendicular.
I don't know. Maybe they'll have be shooting lasers at the at the asses of the little bit guys running around.
Now,
the little
they say in here that they expect to produce 60 terabyte hard drives using this technology in the 3.5-inch form factor. That's pretty impressive.
Well, sure, and I think what they're seeing this as is just the next step, right? So they've done X amount of shrinking of the hard drive head so far, and they sort of tapered that off because there hasn't been much more of a need because the domains just could not have been stored on the media that you were currently using, right? So the race sort of tapered off in that respect. But with this new technology, once they can get that into the drives, then they can probably push that much smaller, even smaller than what they're demoing at. And this was an actual demo. I think they had a drive they were, I don't remember the capacity of that drive that they were demoing, but it was certainly a drive higher than 3 terabytes that was functioning, right? So yeah, it's probably just like the next breakthrough happens, and then when they actually start using that breakthrough, then they just keep tweaking that and advancing upon it. Yeah, you could probably get to 60 terabyte. Granted, it may very well be like a 5-platter drive, and basically as much as you can cram into there, and that's not going to be for years after, years after they start using this tech, for starters, right? But hey, it's still advancing. That's a good thing.
Well, the first perpendicular drives were only like 250 gigabytes, I believe. They were the max size, and then we got the 320s that were, slightly larger, and kind of went from there. So
that's actually a perfect example, right? That when they did the shift to perpendicular, those drives were pretty darn small, right, relative to what we have now. But that perpendicular tech took us all the way out here. So this is still perpendicular. It's just that they're able to write much smaller, with the fact that they're heating it. Because if you think about that, you can actually, if you're heating an area that's even, since it needs heat to be able to write, you can actually sort of bleed over into another track with the head, right? Since you're actually only changing the state of the track, the very fine line that you heated with the laser. Right, so you could actually be writing to an area even smaller than what the head would normally manipulate.
Do you know where this idea came from?
I think it's just
archaeology.
Oh, well, the idea's been around for a long time.
They would get to these archaeological spots, and they dig up the fire pits, and they kind of figured out how when these fire pits were done and what the magnetic field around them was, because they were on all these silicates and iron oxides and all that. And when they heated up the thing, all of the elements and particles they lined up to the magnetic field of the Earth at that time. So it's just kind of a neat little segue that they figured out how much the magnetic field has moved throughout the years through all these archaeological sites that have used this exact thing, where you have heating of a material that changes the magnetic properties of it.
So there you go.
I thought for sure you were going to have a
Wikipedia.
I thought for sure you were going to have some kind of weird joke at the end of that, but
it's science. Science is cool.
The podcast is not yet over, Ryan.
Yeah, I know.
Give them time. And does this mean you're going to have a new thing to benchmark when you're doing hard drives? Not just the speed, but you're also going to have to rate the smell.
Oh, the smell.
What's that smell? Oh, that's just a hard drive rating.
This is the temperature change is probably not going to be that. No, but seriously, it's. I mean, yes, it is hitting with a laser, but it's such a fine beam, and it's such it's probably just only locally raising this tiny area.
It's so fine.
Yeah.
But because of the bleed off heat, you're going to have to worry about deflagrationmentation.
Oh, goodness. So I at home, I have an M17X laptop that I use to play games on my TV. It's connected to my TV. I got a wireless keyboard, mouse, that type of thing. I noticed when I foolishly would use this laptop on my lap or on my legs, then it gets kind of hot. And apparently, Jeremy, you posted a news post this week about Asetek, depending on how you pronounce it, demonstrating liquid cooling for laptop and all-in-one PCs. What did they actually?
Well, they've told us about it, and they put up a nice little video which actually shows an Alienware M18X, which is significantly overclocked from 3.5 gigahertz stock to 4.4 gigahertz on the CPU, and the GPU going from 680 to 800 megahertz because of a nice little proprietary water cooling system that they've set up, which will work for not only laptops but all-in-one PCs that we've been seeing appearing all over the place from just about every vendor. It's questionable just how much price this will add to it. In that we're looking at, as you can see, a very custom job. It's not like you can really build this at home with a kit, or at least not until Asetek designs a kit for you to buy and install at home. So this is like a wonderful way to either reduce the heat and the noise from a laptop you're using in a business sense, or to actually turn a gaming PC into something utterly and completely ridiculous. It's probably going to cost a pretty penny, but it's surprising that these guys seem to be some of the first that have actually tried to do this, because laptops have been around for forever. Hot laptops have been around since Toshiba started making the satellite series, and some of those are still around because you can't kill them until they bake themselves to death anyways. And the other nice thing is that for the all-in-ones, the PCs, the various models that we're seeing come out that are attached to a very large touchscreen, all of a sudden it's quite possible to put a fairly high-powered video card on there because it's water-cooled. It's a really nice idea, and I'm very glad that they've finally put this out on the market. It's going to be interesting to see what the prices are going to be like, though.
I would expect a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I'd do a lot. So who here was a fan of SimCity? SimCity. It's close around on my face.
I mean, Nintendo 60. No, Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo.
Did you as well, Jeremy?
It wasn't on the SNES. It was. Would have been on IBM PS2 about that point.
Okay, all right.
It was also on Windows Mobile.
Okay, well, I hope you didn't play it on that.
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Although maybe a touch interface would have been kind of nice for it. I don't know. So I remember playing on the PC. I also played on the Super Nintendo. I remember playing it before. I remember this was how crazy I was for SimCity. I would get up early before the bus would come for school. This also kind of dates me in age because I think it was middle school. And I would play Super Nintendo SimCity for like an hour before I'd leave for school. All of that leads us up into the news story that a PC-exclusive SimCity engine has been demoed. This is SimCity 5, right? Is that what they're calling it? It is officially SimCity 5. Anybody? No. SimCity will arrive in 20. It'll be out. It was not going to be out until 2013, so that's a little disappointing. There is a video of the SimCity Insider's Look glass box game engine, which is cool, right? So we like to promote things that are PC exclusive for gaming. And you can see, look, the factory actually produces things. Water actually spins. I don't know why this is exciting to me, but I think it's...
Okay, wasn't this kind of done in Sid Meier's Railroads remake? I seem to remember
kind
like
of. Was it 1-to-1, though?
What?
Was it just an animation, or was it 1-to-1? I'm trying to remember. It's been a long while. But one of the things that this demo is showing off is the fact that every time you see the coal, drop a little bit or a box move, it's actually a 1-to-1 representation of a piece of resource in the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So as opposed to just being an animation, it's actually showing you what's going on.
Yeah, no, the railroads really did do that. I mean, you'd have trains moving, and little like rolls of paper, and the amount of coal in there was, how much it was really doing. It wasn't just a stock animation. So you had a train that was running really inefficiently. It had one car full, another car 2/4, 3/4 full, and the rest empty. So I'm calling Shens. They're copying.
Yeah, but they're doing it better, I'm sure.
Sid Meier's
Look at the video. Look at the video.
Look at the skybox. The skybox is so much nicer.
Agents carry water.
Debug mode. Yeah, all right. I tried to make it exciting. I'm excited for SimCity. I'm not excited that it'll be 2013 when it comes out, but maybe it uses physics. You guys never know, right? That would be sweet.
Ooh. Maybe all the routing of trucks will be done by GPU.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, nice. I like it. Let's talk about our second major leak of the week. And this is around a graphics card. So there apparently have been numerous leaks about the GTX 680. In fact, I think we talked about a couple of them last week too, right? You guys, I kind of excluded myself from the conversation, but you guys talked about specifications and all that other kind of stuff that may or may not be true, right?
You mean we talked about them ad nauseum?
Yeah.
And then I talked about it again on Twitch the next day.
Yes.
With Patrick.
Yes.
Ad nauseum.
You do that. I don't know if you see a pattern there.
Yep.
Do I talk
Well,
too
let's
much?
stir.
So tell me a little bit about these 680 leaks that happened, Jeremy. The first one, there were leaks of the GTX card itself. There were leaks of prices now. Newegg is leaking stuff. Like it actually went on sale and people were able to buy it.
Yeah, and since it was Newegg, we got the specs as well. But first off was indeed a leak of a GeForce GTX from Gigabyte with a very Star Wars-y theme to it, honestly. But we've actually seen the card, and the nice thing about that is that we've seen it has two 6-pin PCIe Express connectors. So we now know that on top of the 75 watts that the PCI Express slot itself can provide, the most it can possibly draw above that is 150 watts, which is significantly lower than, say, the two 8-pin connectors for the 580, which we're delivering an extra 275 for.
No, the 580 had one 8-pin and one 6-pin.
One 8 and one 6? So,
yeah,
okay.
7970 has the same configuration.
I'm continuing the exaggeration of
Gotcha.
How much heat that beast consumed. But so we've seen the pictures, which is nice, and hey, it's fun to look at. But then NCIX and Newegg have both accidentally released pricing on of the cards.
Both two vendors did? That's awesome.
Yeah, we've got two of them.
Look at the size of that saber on that card.
Yeah, it's a dual saber too.
It's an Ashwood.
Yeah. But NCIX had pegged them out at a nice price of $578 for an EVGA model.
Okay,
it seems okay. A little bit high. Definitely, AMD isn't going to have to worry too much about this because even if it is better, it's still significantly more than their 7970. But then Newegg kind of made a little bit of a mistake today and let out several different models ranging from $500 all the way up to $535. Significantly lower than the previous leak, and even better, they offer us stats. So you can see on the specs, all of them are running at 1.0006 gigahertz on the CPU. The shader is 2.01. Sorry, GPU. I can't tell the difference anymore. They seem to do the same job. But the shader clock is at 2012 gigahertz. The effective memory.
Right. No, it's all nice. A single clock.
Nice. The effective memory of 6 gigahertz and a little bit of change. And apparently 1,536 stream processors. So significant jump from the 580. And unfortunately for NVIDIA, the secret's out. So start selling the cards.
Somebody said in the chat room that they like how the last one is already listed as out of stock. Apparently some people did get to buy them in the interim while they were on. And they'll just ship tomorrow, so I assume. So whatever. How much memory does it list that they have?
How much memory? One of the models here.
It's all 2 gig, I think.
I believe it's all 2 gig. Yeah. But so questioning your little cough there, if the GPU, the GPU is running at 1.006 and the shader at 2.012, does that maybe suggest that since one is twice the amount of the other, that perhaps this is that super clock we've been hearing hints about, and that maybe that's the maximum effective clock? Or then again, maybe Newegg's leak just isn't quite right. It does have Josh has got something.
No, I mean it sounds like everything that I've heard that they got rid of the hot clock. So instead of having the GPU running at 700 megahertz with the shaders at 1.4 gigahertz, they've kind of met in the middle, and they're running them all at 1 gigahertz. I mean, you've got 3 times the amount of shaders as compared to the previous generation. There's not a whole lot of difference in between the old gen shaders and the new gen. So it's also kind of interesting to see how performance is going to scale, even with 3 times the amount of shaders. But you still have, 32 ROPs, 128 texture units. I can't remember what they're saying that this, generation is going to be, but it's probably going to be somewhere around there. So, performance, it does increase, but it's not 3 times that amount. But I'm going to be really interested to see what GPU type stuff does on this new architecture.
And they've got to be very careful because, as I was mentioning earlier in the pre-show, you can now grab 2 GTX 570s after mail-in rebate, $260 a piece, which puts it at $520, which puts it right in the range of the GTX 680. That's going to be an interesting benchmark to see.
Also, you can get a GTX 580 on Newegg today for $360 if you take into account a mail-in rebate. That's a pretty dramatic price drop in the matter of probably a week.
Which gives you almost the price of an HD 6970.
Yeah, so
shock and awe.
Yeah, it's in terms of 2 570s versus a 680. Obviously, I don't know that answer yet, but the 570s and 580s aren't going to be around for very much longer. We can just assume that. Just like the 6900 series cards are not around for very much longer as well once the 7800s came out. So we'll buy them if you can. Like if you've got a 580 now and you want to do SLI, now's your chance. Boom, go get that card. If you've got a 570 you want to do SLI, boom, now's your chance. You should definitely be buying those cards at these types of prices. If you already have one and you want to double up, and even if you're comfortable with the performance that you get from one of those, and you're not worried about heat or power or any of the new features that the new GPU may or may not have, then yeah, I mean, still they're good cards for that performance or for that cost.
Yeah, and it really messes up AMD's pricing.
Yeah, but you got to think, both of these companies, AMD and NVIDIA, when they launch a new product, they are focused on the new product. They aren't focused on 6000 series, and they're not focused on the GTX 500 series. They're really focused on what they're going to produce for the next 18 months as opposed to what they produced for the last 18 months. And at this point, I think they just want to get it out the door, right? This AMD did a really good job with the 6900 series cards. The 6900 series were pretty much dried up right when the 7800s came out. They didn't do nearly as good a job with the lower end stuff like the 7700s. There are still plenty of options in that range that competed with the 7700s very well in terms of price per dollar. But they did a good job in the mid range there. So we'll see. This is possible. This is what NVIDIA is doing. They want to make sure that when the GTX 680 is actually released, that it is the best card out there. And if they can convince some people to buy some of their older 570s and 580s rather than the 7800s or 7900s, then I think they'll take that as a little bonus on their part.
And I think this is brand new because something off of the chat room made me look at Newegg for the 7950s. Mm-hmm. They're now offering volume discounts. The price of the card goes down if you buy 2.
They're doing that for a lot of cards right now.
Have they? I haven't noticed that.
Yeah. If you buy 2, it's like $20 off each or something like that. No, maybe not that much, but
$10 off. That's interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense. They want you to buy them up front. So,
that save on shipping that way.
Yeah.
Have you seen the size of boxes that Newegg ships even the smallest thing in?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I got a USB drive from them.
Nice.
I got a Dirt 3 key in like a 12 by 7-inch box.
Bigger than a bread box.
Efficiency at its finest.
How many packing peanuts were in that box?
No, it was all wrapped, brown paper.
Oh,
That's even more
This
wasteful.
needs
Doesn't use the air. It needs to be securely shipped.
Yes.
So, Josh, tell me what you're working on. What do you got coming for us next week?
I've got two things for you next week. The first is going to be a video card. I finally got a working BIOS today that actually allows the card to do what it's supposed to do, which is a good thing. And it's the MSI Lightning HD 7970. I think they're called the R7970 Lightning Edition. It's a heck of a card. It's really interesting. It's got some fantastic features to it. I just needed to get it to work properly beforehand before I could actually do the review. And today, well, actually last night, I received the final VBIOS that they were going to be using and shipping out on the production cards that will be coming out a little later this month. And that fixed all the issues that I seemingly had, and it runs like a champ. And I'll have that more. I actually was able to grab a hold of an AMD FX 6200, in the last couple of weeks. I've been talking a little bit more about that one, saying, that at least is an interesting product for the price. It might have decent performance and thermals and overclocking capabilities. I've found out some interesting things about that one, and why you should probably hold off until you see my results and figure out if you want to make that jump or not. Because right now, the FX 6200 and the FX 4170 are the only products really of that range that I would even recommend. But you're really going to have to make your own mind up once you see the results and the things that I kind of had to do to make them competitive. So that'll be something coming up very, very shortly, hopefully, and you'll be able to read about it soon.
Alrighty. Alan, what do you got coming up? Anything that you can talk about yet in the review pipeline?
Yes, and I'm sort of spoiling what's going to be my pick of the week. Partially.
That's fine.
But, so we've reviewed like I don't know what you want to call it, just insane amount of SandForce-based stuff lately. So the Samsung roundup that I've been working on, I did
you blow.
What?
You blow.
No,
the A30 is
don't.
like my favorite SSD out there.
So yeah,
It's
the
just
A30,
so good all around. So good.
Well,
So
here's the
good.
thing. The SandForce are pretty hard to evaluate what trim or how trim actually behaves on, just because they do compression and all these other tricks that just sort of get in the way. Not the case on Samsung. It doesn't do any kind of silly compression stuff or any of that. So I was able to do like a full blown trim evaluation, do an OS install on it, install a virtual machine under that OS, do some other stuff, repeat times 3 since we have 3 different capacities, see how that actually works, and then do things that would cause the drive to trim. In other words, just like format the drive under Windows 7. And it works really, really well. I'm glad to report. So it basically just snaps the drive right back to new condition, like instantly. Like the format takes, 5 or 10 seconds or something. And when you're using it under Windows 7 with it installed on the drive natively, and it's doing trim on the fly, just as Windows 7 does, it keeps the performance really, really well. And to figure that out, I was actually comparing it between XP and Windows 7, because XP doesn't trim, Windows 7 does. So you can actually see the drive would degrade a little bit over time under XP because there was no trim, whereas Windows 7, not the case. It was kept it pretty good. So that's coming up. I've actually all the numbers done for that. I just got to take some pictures and do some writing.
I do have one question for you, Alan.
Yes.
If you were a guy who were to only buy one SSD, I know that you're obviously not that guy because they're thrown at you. Multiple SSDs. I'm going to throw them at you. And but which one would you buy? A SandForce the new Indie Links or the Samsung, and kind of take into perspective, since this is, never mind, I was going to say PC perspective, but anyway, take into perspective the previous versions of these products, as well as their track history in terms of reliability and just basic bulletproofness.
So of the three, and the three being Intel, SandForce, and Samsung.
I thought Intel was doing SandForce.
Intel is, but I'm still going to consider SandForce.
How about Marvell? Marvell, are they even in the running? Okay, we've got 5 manufacturers. Indie Links, SandForce, Intel, SandForce, whatever, OCZ, yeah.
And SandForce.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, you have the Octane, right? That's the new OCZ Indie Links. It's good, but it's not proven yet, right? Because that one has not been out for very long. So yes, performs very well. I was very impressed by the drive, but you got to let it sit out there a little bit before you start making, really, this is the one I would use. Me personally, right? So the ones I would use myself, and the ones I have been using myself in my own system, have been either Intel or Samsung. And the reason is, neither of those have really had weird firmware buggy issues lately, right? The reason I'm saying that is because as far as SandForce goes, there's still sort of a question mark on whether or not that last firmware actually fixed those corner cases of blue screens and weird, obscure kind of things that can happen, right? While I haven't seen it myself, I've still heard, sort of hit or miss reports on people still getting those kinds of issues. But the catch is you don't know for sure if they had the firmware, right? Because I probably, as of right now, I think like half of the SandForce spin-offs, the different companies that were making SandForce drives, hadn't necessarily released an update that has SandForce's most recent update built into it, right? It's just, it has to propagate out there. So, I mean, the big ones have, like Corsair and Patriot and those guys, they have SandForce firmwares that are more up to date. But if you have, like something obscure, right? ADATA, one of the other guys, those weird names you hear that they're SandForce, it's still too
Kingston?
Still too tricky. No, I think Kingston is up to date on them.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. But Samsung has never really had that kind of an issue. Intel had a couple of growing pain issues with like a Mac incompatibility on, what was it, the X25M G2 had a firmware that was like, might not be compatible or seen by Macs or something like that, but they fixed it, right? So, and it was like a real obscure kind of corner case thing. It wasn't like you're using this drive for a month and all of a sudden all your data is gone, right? It was just like, this just didn't work when you plugged it into this to try to use it, right? It would still work elsewhere. It just didn't work in this, in a Mac or whatever. So, yeah, so that's why basically I'm either Intel or Samsung. And the other reason I sort of lean towards those both guys is because they're each handling their own flash memory, right? Samsung has Samsung Flash in their Samsung SSDs. Intel, same deal, right? IMFT Flash in theirs. So they know, they're making it, right? They know the ins and outs of it. They know exactly how it's going to respond when you get a particular kind of an error, right? They know exactly how to do recovery past that error. Some, a block of flash goes bad on the fly. What happens? How does the drive react? Does it just brick itself, get confused, right? Or does it gracefully handle it and move on? The only thing close to any kind of weird issue like that between Intel or Samsung we saw was actually Ken's drive. Ryan, you remember that? Ken had a X25M, the original one, the black one. And it had a weird issue where like the first few sectors of the drive just got corrupted and the drive would just time out. But, you could actually get it back in that case. You could read all the data around that bad spot. It prevented you from booting the system, but you could still read everything else that was there, right? It was very gracefully handled it. I was actually able to do like a drive recovery and get the data back and that sort of thing off of that. So that was not the case with any time I've seen a SandForce drive fail. And I've personally bricked 3 different SandForce drives. Right? And I have not been able to brick any Intel or any Samsung. God knows, I've written probably, I don't know, maybe a few hundred terabytes to these drives just during the testing I've done for the past few weeks. One of them sat there on the test bed and just got continuously randomly written to. It was not very happy, but it snapped right back as soon as I issued it a format and trimmed it, right? So yeah, they're just more reliable, in my opinion. You know, the Intel and the Samsung. The other guys.
I don't know. I picked up one of those Agility 3s for what, 240 gig drive for $269 plus a copy of Mass Effect 3 for free.
That's true. And the Agility 3 is the Agility 3 is a good
cheaper
drive,
than mine.
But I will qualify that you need it on the most recent firmware.
I do. I've got the 2.15. If you know what I mean.
Did yours ship with it?
Yes.
Mine shipped with it as well.
I had an Agility 3. Agility 3 was one of the 3 drives that were Sandforce based that I have bricked. And the Agility 3, I just put some data on it, and then I plugged it into a different computer. And then it was done. It just went away. Not OCZ's fault. It was the Sandforce that was really the problem. It was the firmware issue. But it's fixed now. But for that particular drive, I had to get a new sample from OCZ. I had to replace it because you just couldn't get it back once it got in that condition. Any data that was on there.
All right. We've lambasted these SSD guys enough. Did you pick a drive to answer his damn question yet?
What? Intel?
If you were to buy a single drive, I just want to hear it from you. Single drive.
Oh, okay. I would go between Intel or Samsung. I would look at best cost per gig for what I wanted, and go with that. Either one or the other. Okay. It's a toss-up.
Are you running for
so
governor?
a Samsung 830. Those are the cheapest out there.
If that's the case, then yes.
Yes. Well, look at those brown eyes. They not be lying to you. Let's move on.
Okay. Let's okay. That was his hardware software the pick of the week, right? Was it your software was in there, right?
Well, my hardware pick. The hardware was going to be that Samsung deal that actually I think Josh was just talking about. Someone tipped me off earlier today. Actually, it's like $150 for a Samsung 830 128 gig. Right now,
man.
Just over $1 per gig.
The 256 gig is like $297.
We're having a ride.
Hello. Huh? Oh, hi. How are you?
So my hardware pick of the week is a GTX 680 that you could pick up at Newegg or NCIX today if you listened to this an hour ago.
Or in 12 hours.
Or in 12 hours, right? Your pick. It'll probably be a good card. I don't know. I got to finish writing. So I just want to get through the podcast. Jeremy, what do you got?
This is RAMBUS. RAMBUS is dead. If
Terminator.
you still hold on, and even better, it's a Terminator. You know, it looks like RAM, but there's no
bus.
There's no RAM on your
no memory on there. That's because you had to put them in pairs. This is the original frickin' dual channel stuff, except if you had a dual channel on one chip, you had to pair it with a blank one. Seriously, if you're still running Windows 95, if you're still holding on to RAMBUS, let go of the old hardware. It's okay. We have to have a hardwareaholics anonymous. But apart from that, if you want something that's actually interesting, tomorrow, Wing Commander Saga. It is a completely free FreeSpace 2 mod. FreeSpace 2, the source code was released out into open source. Of Wing Commander starts slightly before Wing Commander 3, takes you all the way through to the end of the Kilrathi War. It has, and the video will show you some.
Does it have Mark Hamill?
No, but I would not be surprised if he doesn't make a cameo because he was in Wing Commander 3, and they're going to have to upscale the video because having recently gone on Good Old Games and bought Wing Commander 3, oh my, it's not quite what I remember.
320 by 240 doesn't hold up.
No, especially not on a widescreen. But it did take 10 years for them to do, but they have something like 11,000 original lines of dialogue, 55 missions apparently, with animated briefings. It's got cinematics all the way through it, some of which I'm assuming are snatched from the Wing Commander 3. And giant fleet battles.
I'm impressed.
If you're not excited about this, there's something seriously wrong with you, or you're way too young.
Do I have to get a flight stick again? Is this what this means?
I was just playing with my Logitech Wingman not too long ago, and it's dying. So I need a new one too. But then again,
I need a Sidewinder with force feedback, I think.
I would assume that force feedback is going to be in this. Not that it's that exciting.
Yeah, I know.
But I've also got
that's pretty cool.
Brand new.
So that comes out tomorrow. What's the URL for it, or where will people find it?
They'll find it at this link on the front page. But it is indeed wcsaga.com. And
Easy
we
enough.
don't know exactly what time zone. 14 hours, 44 minutes, 36 seconds.
Fair enough.
They
All
have
right,
a countdown.
Josh, what was your pick? Your oldie but goodie here? Josh Walrath. Oh, well, so
He's
much
muted.
for that.
It was a Hyper
we
212 Plus.
We apparently kicked Josh off of the podcast.
And it comes with Monster Cable.
What did he pick? What was it?
Links in the chat. It's a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Plus.
Oh, I see.
Heat pipe
I
direct
see.
contact long life sleeve, but it comes with a free Monster Cable.
Sweet.
An 8-foot long component video cable.
Hey, but it's free.
A component video cable?
Yeah.
I'll take.
Could someone please explain the connection between a Cooler Master Hyper 212 heat pipe CPU cooler and the need for a component video cable?
It's because they can't sell any of them.
Yeah, but just burn it or something. Like, why do you want to ship it and add weight to your cost? Just throw that stuff in the garbage.
Well, it's 8 foot long, so you can get a good swing on it. So you use it to whip the guy that you're getting to install the new cooler.
I see.
Okay. All right.
You use it to tie the cooler to the motherboard. You just wrap it around.
Is Josh still in the chat or anything? Maybe he needs to answer for this. Like, I don't.
He ran.
Himself, Josh Lord.
He left us with a pick and ran.
Or Josh. Okay, Alan, did you have anything specific other than what you just mentioned?
No, that deal on Newegg looks pretty good right now. That like $150 Samsung 830. One of our viewers bought a pair of them earlier today and is going to raid them.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, that is going to round out our show for this week. Stay tuned. Next week we'll have lots of good stuff. If you're listening to this, no surprise, there's a new NVIDIA graphics card release review. You should go read that. We will talk about on next week's show. Josh's 7970 Lightning review will be up by then. Alan will probably have some SSDs to talk about. We'll have a lot of good stuff to go over next week. If you want to get in touch with us, normal ways, podcast at pcper.com, 1-888-38-PCPer, toll free in US and Canada. And of course, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, YouTube. If you pretty much add a /PCPer to the end of any of those, that'll work. Twitter.com/PCPer, Facebook/PCPer, YouTube.com/PCPer, and gplus.to/PCPer. Yes, PC Perspective, as is highlighted right there. So we really appreciate you guys listening in. And if you are listening to this live, make sure you tune in to pcper.com/live tomorrow for the NVIDIA special announcement. Wink, wink. You'll never guess what it is. So we'll close out the show. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
Yeah. And I'm Alan Malventano.
Thank you for listening. We're sorry Josh did not grace you with the conclusion of the podcast, but we'll talk to you next week.